is the discipline? What discipline is needed? Discipline for what? What is the purpose of discipline? To achieve the goal. Okay. What is the purpose of discipline? You know, we talk a lot in the school, in the colleges, everywhere. We talk in the church discipline. You know, the book of Corinthians is all about discipline. There should be discipline in the church. Who should speak, when to speak, how to speak. You know, who should assume the, even there is a requirement as far as the discipline for a post of bishop. A bishop should be this. There is a qualification of a bishop. There is a qualification of a deacon. Isn't it? Why do we need disciplines in all areas? Be it a secular, be it sports, be it a film industry, be it church setup, be it a spiritual organization. Why one word is everywhere? Why do you need discipline? Come on. To maintain good conduct, okay, to achieve the goal. What is the purpose of discipline? What is the purpose that needs to be solved? Okay, a person should have personal discipline. For example, what time a person will get up? Imagine a person gets up regularly at one point of time. Regularly, it is this. He or she is very consistent. Okay, but there are other people also, doesn't have any discipline. Are you getting? You tell them, this time they will come 5-10 minutes late. Right? You tell them this work, they will not finish the work. Or the quality of the work is not. You tell them any rules, one day, 2 days, third day they will break the rules. Are you getting? Right? So why discipline? And then do Bible talk about discipline? Whether Bible talks about discipline? Yes. Look at the book of Proverbs. It is full of what? Discipline. Okay? Full of discipline. How to implement this discipline? Something which is good. But how? What is the method and the procedure we should be applying? For example, if there is a rule or a regulation, you do it in the organization, you do it in the church. Imagine in a church you are a leader and you made a rule, but the person is not following. How you should go about it? What to do? Come on, take a decision. You are a leader. I'm putting a case. What you will do? Do you think that you make a rule in the church, people will break it? Why they break it? There is a psychological term, testing limits. Write it down this. Testing limits. I'll tell you what you mean by testing limits. It's a psychological term. Search it in the Google. Come up with a good article and definition. Testing limits. You tell a rule. 1 day, 2 day, they will follow. 3rd day, they will test. For example, it is like a traffic signal. Okay? You see, you are there with your favorite bike. Are you getting? And you see there is a red signal. Red means what? You should be stopping. But you see here and there is no traffic police. So the temptation is. And so we break the first signal. Then you see that I already broke one signal. Let me try this one also. You again come up with another signal. And so, because you crossed one signal, one red light, the level of confidence increases. Are you getting? To break second signal. Right? And so you try to break that signal, and there will be a time where in your life you will never stop at the red light. We call it what? Testing limits. For 1 week, nobody caught you. The level increases, level of confidence. For 1 month, you are not caught by the traffic police. The level again increases. And so, you have a testimony that I am breaking for 2 months. Victorious. And then one time when the traffic police catches you, that's the end. Okay? We call it, that's what the author is writing, that's what the testing limits. Let me see what happens. That's the psychology. You make a rule, and then after 2 days, okay, let me see what happens if I break it. And if Lulun complains against me, that I have seen Ajay sir breaking the rule, I will catch what? Lulun, why did you open your mouth? Why? It is not testing limits. I can do it. If I am not caught, I will do it again. Are you getting? So, that's what people test limits. Right? They test, and as you said, they don't want to fall into this discipline area. Discipline area. But then, life in reality functions on discipline, on rules and regulations. There is a way to do everything. Are you getting? And so, discipline is important for what? As Tom said, to achieve goals. Isn't it? To have a proper conduct. Are you getting? The character is built because of what? Discipline. Discipline. Okay? Right? So, learning and training is important. Okay? So, that's what we are talking about. Now, the next topic is how Christian leadership is different. And then we will share 2-3 points, and then we'll move to Old Testament if there is a time. How Christian leadership is different. We were discussing yesterday also the definition of secular general leadership and Christian leadership. The purpose is what? God's mission. The procedure is what? God given. Isn't it? Even the process is what? Laid down by in the Bible. Right? So everything is God oriented. Now, is Christian leadership, number one is it a skill? Is it a skill? You can write it down. To be learned, or is it inherent? That is by birth. What it is? What do you think? We have already discussed. Is Christian leadership is inborn, or is it a skill to be learned? You know, we have already discussed. But how much is this? What Thomas Alva Edison said? 1% is your natural leadership, but 99% is the training. Right? You are born to be a sprinter, right? You are born to be an athlete, but that has to be training. Okay? That has to be training. So it is, yes, both, but the training is very important. The training is very important. Okay? And that's why the leaders don't want to be trained. Why Christian people don't want to be trained in leadership. And we have already seen, because they think that they are naturally they are born with a leadership quality.
Yeah, many leaders that not as the way Jesus taught us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they are doing leaders, but not the way Jesus taught us. Jesus
Yeah.
taught us, you do first. Yes, I want to do this.
Yeah.
That's why we are teaching and running and lead our leadership, but it's very different ways.
Yeah.
Not that I
Yes, there is a lot of task. It's quite challenging. It's almost becoming like a servant. Okay, and so leaders are not perfect. Let's not keep them that one mistake and then you're not a leader. Leaders are not. Even Moses is not perfect. Joseph was not perfect. Was he a perfect man? No. Perfect leader? No. All has shortcomings and all. But then, what it is, right? So is it a skill? I'll write it down. Leadership for some comes naturally. But we can learn to lead better. Often by developing skills. Often by developing skills. Growing in specific skills allow us to better serve God's people. By leading them well. Growing in specific skills allow us to better serve God's people by leading them well. Growing as disciples personally includes developing as a leader specifically. Underline that statement. Growing as a disciple will eventually lead to become a leader. Why this comes first? Why we should be a disciple of Christ first and then eventually we will be a better leaders? Why is it? What is the connection between discipleship and leadership? What is the connection? Connection between discipleship and leadership. Why the leaders should be trained to be a disciple first, and then that's what the statement is, and then can be a better leader. Okay, discipleship means what? The word disciple comes from a root word discipline. A disciple is the one who is fully trained, disciplined person. That's why he or she is a disciple. Disciple means following, obeying. That's the meaning of disciple, isn't it? Disciple doesn't mean that whenever you want, unless you are not convinced, you will not follow. That's what the secular people think. I need to be convinced first, right? What you will do if you are convinced? Then only we will do. No, obedience doesn't talk about that. Obedience means following the order. Agree? Isn't it? Following the commandment of God. No if, no but. What I will get if I follow? No. Obedience doesn't come with that. Okay? So disciple will eventually lead to become a leader. Okay? And so somebody wrote down that quotation. The person who learns to obey, will eventually learn to give orders. So it's a skill. You know? See, the moment you try to obey, you're also learning to give orders. Agree? Right? So it is a skill. It is a skill to be learned. Okay? To be learned. And that's why it is important for us that we need to learn the skill. You know, I firmly believe, even though when we take seminars with the teachers should be coach. You know, you have a coach in all the sports. What the coach do? What the coach do? They coach people. Coaching. What do you mean by coaching? Coaching is training. Right? It is the training period. Are you getting? For example, if your coach is telling you to hold a bat straight when you have to play the straight drive, what should be the position of the bat? Do you think the batsman should follow his instruction? Yes. Or do you think that unless I am convinced, then only I will do it? That doesn't work. If the coach says come at 5 o'clock, the person should be there before time. Then only you can become a best batsman of the world. Are you getting? So it is more of a coaching. Now, in your school days, when we have already discussed, in your school days, is your maths teacher told you that don't worry, we will do it together? Whether they told you anything like this? Yes? They told you? And you did it? How many teachers did they say that? And how many of you heard from your teachers that you are not good for this? Maths is not your cup of tea. Just leave it and join BA. No? Many teachers they say that. Are you getting? But then it makes a difference. Coaching. It is all about what? Coaching people. The teachers should be what? Best coaches. Right? That's what. So it is a skill. It is a skill to be learned. Right? The second one is shared power. Shared power. S-H-A-R-D-R-E-D. Shared power. Christian leadership that honors God, Christian leadership that honors God is not about the accumulation of power. It's not about the accumulation of power. It's not about the accumulation of power. Rather, it is about empowering people. It is all about empowering people. What do you mean by accumulation of power? What do you mean by accumulate? Gathering up. Okay? Accumulate, gathering up. So, Christian leadership is not about gathering up, having too much of powers and position, but it is all about empowering. What do you mean by empowering? Strengthening, equipping. You know, that is the thing. That is what the Christian leadership is all about. Strengthening, empowering people. Right? It is all about empowering people. Write down one quotation by John Stott. John Stott. Write down. The authority by which the Christian leader leads, the authority by which the Christian leader leads is not power, comma, but love. Semicolon. You understand semicolon? Okay, semicolon. Not force, comma, but example. Not force, but example. Semicolon. Not coercion. C-O-E-R-S-I-O-N. Coercion. You know, again, by force. Coercion means by force. But reasoned persuasion. The authority by which the Christian leader leads is not power but love, not force but example, not coercion but reason, persuasion. Full stop. Continue. Leaders have power. Comma, but power is safe. Only in the hands of those who humble themselves to serve. Look at that, beautiful. This should be there in your answer when you write in the exam. Okay? When you write in the exam. The authority by which Christian leader leads is not power but love, not force but example, not coercion but reason, persuasion. Leaders have power, but power is safe only in the hands of those who humble themselves to serve. We have done a brief study on Hitler. When he had power, he destroyed other people. He destroyed humanity. I'll give you one case. Right? After this, I'll give you. Let me finish this, the last point. The last is value-driven leadership. Value-driven leadership. Value-driven leadership. Value-driven, D-R-I-V-E-N, value-driven leadership. Yes. Value-driven. Okay? It is all about the character, underline that word, character of the leader. It is all about character of the leader. The leader becomes a servant. The leader becomes a servant. Comma. The leader does not just attach. The leader does not just attach serving behaviors. Underline this sentence. Not just attach serving behaviors. serving behaviors. Okay, what's the meaning? The leader becomes a servant. The leader does not just attach serving behaviors. So we have this word. Have you heard this cliche? Servant leadership. Have you heard this servant leadership? Yes, no. Servant leadership. A servant who is a leader who is a servant. That's in UBS, we used to have this. A servant who is a leader who is also a servant. Okay, and then there is one. There is one quotation from Guinness. Oh, Guinness. Oh, Guinness. Guiness. That's the name of the author. Oh, Guinness. The name of the book is When No One Sees. The name of the book is When No One Sees. S-E-E-S. When No One Sees. Hold on. The importance of character. The importance of character in an age of image. The importance of character in an age, A-G-E, age of image. The year of publication is 2000. Year of publication is 2000. Okay. Now the quotation is, write it down. Character is internally who one is in the soul. Oh, I like that. Who one is in the soul, comma, the ontos, O-N-T-O-S, the ontos of the person, the ontos of the person. The ontos of the person, and after person, give 3 dots. That means I've taken only half quotation. Okay? Right? Character is internally who one is in the soul, the ontos. What do you mean by ontos? Ontology. The root word. Ontological, philosophical, it comes from a philosophy. The ontological argument. Argument based on the etymology of the word. We call it ontology. And have you ever heard this word, etymology? Etymology means what? The root. So there are philosophers who argue based on the root word, etymology. We call it ontology, the foundation, the root. Okay? Right? And write it down. The values influences every aspect of a person. The values the values influence every aspect of a person's life. Every aspect of a person's life, including judgments, responses, and commitments, responses and commitments, serving as guides. Underline the word guides. Serving as guides for actions and decisions. This is said by Kouzes, Kouzes, Kouzes and Posner, name of the authors. Kouzes and Posner. The statement is given by Kouzes and Posner. Next paragraph, the last sentence we will write and then. For Aristotle, have you heard this man?
Yes.
For Aristotle, there were four cardinal values. For Aristotle, what is the spelling of Aristotle? A-R-I-S-T-O-P-L-E. Yes. For Aristotle, there were four cardinal, C-A-R-D-I-N-A-L, four authoritative, four cardinal values. Four cardinal values. Colon, what are those? Courage, justice, prudence, P-R-U-D-E-N-C-E, prudence, put comma after every word, P-R-U-D-E-N-C-E, prudence, and temperance, T-E-M-P-E-R-A-N-C-E, temperance. Courage, justice, prudence, and temperance. And by developing and living these virtues, one would flourish as a human being. One would flourish as a human being. Right? So that's what we are discussing about. Okay, values. You know. So it is Christian leadership is a value-driven leadership. Value-driven means what? We are working on the biblical principles. Are you getting? The biblical values. But then for Aristotle, these are the four characters: formation, person, courage, justice, prudence, and temperance. And if we develop that, we will flourish. We will flourish. And so that's the meaning of these three are important. Okay, what are those? Is it a skill or inherent? Second, shared power. Third one is value-driven leadership. Okay, right? Now, what do you mean by servant leadership when we are discussing about servant leadership? Whether God got angry. Whether God gets angry? Yes? Whether Jesus got angry? Paul got angry?
Yes.
A leader should get angry? Or a servant means, no, I'm here to serve you, you tell me, give me orders and then I will do whatever you want. Imagine your congregation people start telling you what to do. Yeah? Pastor, don't preach this kind of sermons. Okay, then you change it. Pastor, this is too long, make it short. Then somebody will say that it is too short, make it long. What you will do? And you are there to serve people. How would you balance being a servant and being a leader? How would you balance? Do you think there should be a balance? There should be a time where, you have to take firm decisions, people like it or not. But for the betterment, okay? Right? That will be. So, servant leadership. I'll give you one case, you can put it off. I'll give you one case. Now listen carefully.